Yeah, well, I mean, what's your experience been?
Well, I mean, there are savings, really small savings. Things like as your children grow up, they start to play with each other. So from your time perspective, you have to give less of yourself, but also you're probably not taking them out and having to do lots of different activities with them, because they can just go out into the garden and play together. So on a really basic a sense, that would definitely work. But we definitely don't want to encourage people not to have children.
Oh no, of course. You just pay for them any way you can.
Yeah.
Just on the subject of playing here, a question in from Daniela. I suppose, to paraphrase a little bit, we're used to the idea of perhaps the rose-tinted spectacles view of kids all playing in the street and kicking the football around, and now they've been much more kind of home-based, and as Daniela's point here, it's lots of expensive gadgets and toys. Have we gone to the stage of, are we making a rod for our own back in terms of the amount that we buy to occupy children? Are there more economical ways of getting them to fill their time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my daughter's Christmas list basically consisted of things she'd seen on commercials around Christmas time. She didn't even know what they were. I mean, the demand on parents to buy the latest toy or whatever it is huge. I think probably a good exercise would be to encourage parents to start saying no right from an early age, so that children don't grow up expecting to get whatever it is, the newest thing. Sounds really harsh, but when we were all growing up, we probably had to either save our money, or we had to pester our parents for the one thing that we were allowed. And it seems like kids nowadays just get everything. So yeah, I definitely think we could say no a bit more frequently.
Do you say no a lot when your lot were growing up?
Well, a little bit. I think, as with all these things, it's about getting a balance between the two. You don't want them to feel as if they're being deprived, as it were, compared with their friends and so on. But on the other hand, you just can't afford to, and it wouldn't be right to simply splash out on every single luxury pair of trainers or computer game that they want. So I think it's about a balance, and definitely saying no sometimes and encouraging them to take part in those pursuits that are free, like whether it's football or climbing trees or taking the dog for a walk, as opposed to playing on expensive computer games.
So you're not going to spoil them rotten, maybe just a little bit, but you do want to sort of plan for the future and plan for their future. What are the sort of what are the sort of decisions that parents should be making, and what are the sort of financial options available to them in terms of planning for their child's future?
Well, one of the slightly concerning things that the LV research brought out was that some people are withdrawing from saving and perhaps cancelling insurance products because they're feeling the pinch in this recession. And that is slightly alarming, because we know the costs are big and that they need to be planned for. So there's obviously lots of ways in which you can save in the High Street Building Society, in savings accounts, in child trust funds, or in tax-free ISA accounts, or even if you put a little bit under the mattress or in the empty coffee jar. Saving is a great thing to do, but also I think it's worth looking at what kind of protection you have in place. For example, if you should have an accident or become ill and be unable to work. Now, there are some people who have insurance through their job. It comes with their job, and they'll know that from their details, that if they're sick, they're still going to get their pay. But there are lots of people who work for themselves or in other businesses where they don't have that cover, and it can be relatively economical to protect yourself against that, so that if the worst should happen and you're unable to work for a period of time, you still get your income covered, so you can still carry on bringing up your family as you have done before.
Okay. Nifa, Amy's written in here, to what extent do the wider family tend to contribute financially, I mean even anecdotally, towards the cost of raising a child?
Well, most parents will see, we've just passed Christmas, and they'll have received loads and loads of toys, probably half of which they didn't really want, and their kids have loads of toys anyway. I spend my time kind of trying to dispose secretly of toys, because the toy collection just grows and grows. And it might be worth sending a message out to the wider family and saying, look, we're saving up for this thing, a couple of bikes, or a playhouse or something. We're just going to get one big thing. Don't shower the kids with loads of toys and things they already have. Let's save for the one thing, and that's really nice for grandparents and the wider family to know that their contributions are going towards something that the child really wants and is going to play with.
Nigel, we had a question here from Linda, who's got 3 children who will be going to university in about a decade's time. what are her options in terms of being able to finance them at that stage in the future? I mean, what sort of products or what sort of things should she be thinking about if she's going to be faced with 3 lots of very expensive university bills?
Well, I think the two extremes of that are to work out roughly what it's going to cost and start saving now, so that you know that by the time that decade is ended, you'll have that money in a bank that you can use. The other extreme is to simply wait and see what happens and try and fund it one way. Now, we wouldn't recommend necessarily either of those extremes, because not many people can afford to put away that much money. But I think you have to try and save a little bit if you seriously want to be able to help your children when they go to university. They can get loans, they have to repay those, but there are still other costs on top of that. And I have 2 children away at college at the moment, and they get the loans, but we also give them a lot of support for some of their living costs and accommodation and so on. And it's not easy, but having saved a little bit for that, it certainly has helped. So that's what I'd recommend.
In your research, did you find that sort of grandparents and wider family members were also kind of contributing to the pot, or did they just go down the presents route?
I think it varies, and one thing we have noted from some other research we did a while ago is that actually a lot of parents are more likely to ask their parents, i.e. the grandparents, to actually provide monetary gifts for children so that they can be put away for things like education, rather than simply to buy toys. So I think that is a growing trend of looking for support financially rather than toys as presents.
Okay. A question from Furby here to both of you. Nifa, I'll start with you. Given these figures, would Nigel and Nifa have another child? Not together.
I've got 2. I'm very happy with 2. Yes, it might stop me from having a third. I know how expensive children are, but also I'm a working mum. I work full time. I live in London. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world. So yes, it might stop me from having a third, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Honest answer. Excellent. Nigel?
Well, I think I can safely say that my childbearing days are behind me. So it's not
Charlie
really.
Chaplin at 80, didn't he, Father?
Well, it's not really a real issue for me. But I've loved having children, and I'm sure that if age and other things were right, I probably would have another one and not really think too much about the consequences. So whilst I hope people do think about it and do plan and do try and save towards it, the last thing we want is anybody to be put off from what can be one of the most rewarding parts of your life, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Now, we had a few questions in about education, and specifically about private education, which I realise wasn't part of the sort of core part of the survey. But if I just read one of the ones here from James Baldwin, would you agree that the cost of a child will vary significantly according to the educational choices you make? And what effect is that going to have on my budgeting, is what James Baldwin has said.
Well, yes, it will vary enormously, and our cost of £201,000 includes university, but it doesn't include private school fees. It assumes that the child goes to a state school and obviously has uniforms, sports equipment, books and other things they need, but not actually paying of private school fees. So it obviously can be a lot more expensive than even we've estimated through the research.
Nifa, in terms of what sort of is discussed on Gurgle, I mean, how much of an issue is the problem of having to consistently add on the budget for possibly going down the private education route?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen on the Gurgle.com chat forums, there's an ongoing debate about state school versus private school. Lots of people don't have the choice because they live in a catchment area where there's not a particularly good school. And lots of people, most of our members, live in areas where there's brilliant village primary schools and their children go to the local primary school. I think it really is just down to the parents, and private school especially is definitely something that you might be able to ask grandparents to help with. It's a sort of family decision, family choice whether you want your children to go to those kind of schools. Fantastic if you can afford it. They are very expensive. I think that's definitely something that you could maybe say, look, don't buy them these expensive presents. Maybe just help us a little bit every month to pay school fees.